Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. Thanks for joining me here tonight for another craft night with friends. We are working on the raccoon embroidery. It doesn't look like much right now, but that will turn into this cute little sampler here. So this is a free pattern that we have on the website, and it's also available as a kit. So feel free to download it and start stitching with me tonight. My name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make cute embroidery kits for beginners, and I'm here every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, and it's a time that we can relax and craft together. So all right, let's get started on this embroidery tonight. Thanks again for joining. All right, so we have where we left off last night. Let me get you guys a little bit lower here. Okay. All right, so we left off, we learned the straight stitch, the seed stitch, running stitch, and back stitch last night. And then, oh thanks Ruby, and then we applied it up on the top here. So a little straight stitch, which is just like one tiny little stitch, right? And then we have the seed stitches, which are these little fur bits. The back stitch is going around the eye, and the eye itself is a back stitch. And then we've actually finished the running stitches for the piece that's over here on the side there. So that's where we left off last night. And tonight we're going to start with the split stitch here. I have my pattern from the kit here. So I'm just going to see, okay, the split stitch, and up here, the split stitch is used for all of this like Queen Anne's lace, this kind of plant back here. So all right, we are going to be using that lime peel color, so let's get that out. That's right here. Okay. So I'm going to grab my 24 inches of this or so. Hold on, let me make sure I can see your comments there. Okay. Oh, thanks for the share, Amy. Ugh, I appreciate that. Okay, so here is the 24 inches or so. And again, a reminder, this is a free pattern on my website, and it's also available as a kit. I'm stitching the kit right now, which has it pre-printed, so we didn't have to trace it all last night. But all right, so I got my hoop. Let's get this back in the hoop. I'll be moving the hoop around a little bit, but tonight I'm going to put it in the bottom here so we can do that split stitch. There, putting the top over that. Just making it a little more taut in there. Hope everyone had a lovely Tuesday. I think it's supposed to get up to 95 degrees tomorrow, but it's supposed to feel like 105, so that'll be fun. Ugh. All right, let's get our 3 strands out of here. I'm using 3 strands of embroidery floss again. It's the split stitch, and you'll see why in a sec. It's easier theoretically and more typically used when you're using an even amount of threads. We're using a uneven amount. We're using an odd amount of threads, so it's gonna feel a little bit different. But I still really like it. So all right, let's get our ends together here. All right, and grab my needle. Let's just get cracking on this today. I'm excited. Let's see how far we can get. So the process that I'm doing this tonight is going to be stitching, we'll learn a stitch, and then we'll apply it up in the top area just so we can see, like, okay, that's great, that's a stitch, but how do we actually use it? Like, what does it look like for real in an actual piece? So that's why we'll jump up to the top, and then we'll come back down and learn the next stitch, and then jump up back to the top again. All right, so I'm going to weave to start this row. I'm going to just weave into the backs of stitches that are already there. I do that versus starting with knots. I don't like using knots on the back because then my thread just accidentally hooks onto it. Oh, I've started embroidering now, and I feel Oh, it is very difficult. Oh, let me know what you're feeling is difficult. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. I know transferring a design can always be a little bit of a bear. We did a little bit of that last night. The replays for all this are on YouTube, but maybe I'll try and do some edited bits on TikTok as well, like how to trace the design. This is pre-printed, but I did print out from the PDF. This is, again, a free PDF of this. Last night was our first time stitching on it, and I kind of showed how I can transfer, or how I transfer the design. You can see it a little bit there in pencil, and we did a little bit with the water-soluble marker. So it's a bit to get through all that, for sure. That's why I like the pre-printed stuff. But yeah, if anyone has any embroidery questions, just let me know, for sure. Okay, we're going to be doing the split stitch here. So I'm going to start at the beginning of the row this time. Oh, do I have any tips on starting for this? Yes, first of all, the pattern is free. You can go download it on my site, and you actually, when you download it, you actually get like 14 days, like 14 emails on going through each stitch. I'll put together a little TikTok of how we started this last night. But you start with just tracing the design onto the fabric, unless you have the kit that's also available. That's pre-printed here. And then, yeah, I'll be showing, I'm going to be showing how to go through this whole process over the next, over this week. All right, so for a split stitch, oh, and just so you know, it does come with instructions, so I'm not just like blindly doing it. I'm looking at, you know, this tells me what goes where as far as stitches and what colors to use, and there's also a pile of all the different stitches and how to do them. Plus, there's videos for how to do each stitch, and I'm going through them live here as well. So all these lives will be saved and available too. Okay, so split stitch. I'm going to make one stitch length stitch. So just kind of how we did the straight stitch yesterday. So I'm going forward along the line, just like so. Okay, and a split stitch, we are just doing literally that. I'm going to come up just a little bit behind, like almost about halfway. You could go a little less, I don't think it really matters. But I'm going to come up through my last stitch, actually splitting them in half. So I'm going to come up, let's go about right there. And you can kind of see I'm coming up in between those threads of the stitch, right? So I'm actually like cutting right into the last stitch. So there we go. I'm kind of like halfway up through that stitch, split right in the middle there. So all right, that's our first stitch. The second stitch, I'm going to go like another stitch length away, maybe a little wider. I'm going about 1/4 of an inch. Okay. And we're going to come up again a little bit back from where we just went in and splitting, like going right through the middle of those stitches there. Just cutting splitting those threads. So all right, and that's all there is to it. Let's do a few more, and we can compare it to the back stitch. It has a totally different look than the back stitch. I kind of use the split stitch if I want like a little bit of an organic line feel, like it looks like just like one nice mass line, whereas the back stitch, you can see all the different little beaded stitches, like it's all just like a little, you can see each little stitch in a row, and to me that's pretty cute. But sometimes you might not want to see them all in a row like that. Then I use the split stitch like this. So let's just compare these for a sec. So this is just like much more, I don't know, maybe even a little messier, just more organic. It actually kind of looks more like a solid line, I think, whereas this looks like a bunch of little stitches. So that's kind of the different look. And it just all depends, what do you want your line to look like ultimately? Do you want like the cute little beads of stitches that you can see, or do you want it more blended together? If you are using an even number of threads, when you come up, you want to divide it right in half. So like if you're using 2 threads, you have one on one side and one on the other. I'm using 3, so I'm just kind of coming up wherever it ends up, which is totally fine. So there, let's cruise around the rest of this line, and then we will go and apply this up top here. And it's a few of these stems in the background are going to be using the split stitch. Oh, got a little fuzzle coming through. But yeah, so we'll be stitching this for the rest of the week, and probably a little bit more. We'll probably come back on Monday and maybe even Tuesday and work on this some more. Oh gosh, maybe even more. We'll have to see. I do want to finish this, so we'll go till it's done. My thought is this week we'll go through each of these stitches and apply them a little bit up on the top, but we won't finish all those stitches on the top. But then once we've learned all the stitches, then we'll go back and finish it all up. We'll definitely apply them, like test them out on the top design area. So one thing that helps me a ton when I stitch is I always have my left hand, or my hand that's holding the hoop in the back, and I'm feeling like where is the needle coming through. I'm feeling the thread as it comes through. And I even push the thread with my hand off to the side, so when I come back up, it's kind of out of the way. I can kind of show you what that looks like. So let me just finish this stitch. There, so I'll like put my finger in between those loops, and then they'll kind of keep them away from each other. When they are next to each other like that, that's when it kind of tangles into a pile of knots. So I always kind of keep my left hand back here working. What is a stem stitch? So the next stitch will be the stem stitch, Nora. So we'll get on that for sure tonight yet. All right, maybe we do the stem stitch now, and then I'll go up and we can work on both of those up top. I think we'll do that. So, all right, let's finish up. That's the end of our split stitch right there. I think that's pretty cute. It looks totally different than the back stitch, and obviously very different than the running stitch. But it has, like, the back stitch is all those little beady stitches, whereas this just looks like one solid piece almost, I think. All right, so I'm going to weave in, just to finish this thread, I'm going to weave it into the backs of some of these stitches. Taking me a little bit to get started, because the stitches are so small back there. And there we are. Okay, so let's snip. Oops, I think my needle's stuck. There we go. Let's snip that end there. Again, I'm not tying knots back here. I'm just weaving in the ends. Then I have like that nice clean back. All right, let's go ahead and do that stem stitch. So the stem stitch is going to be in the fresh basil color. That's that darker green. Yeah, so I'm going to do the stem stitch, and then we'll jump up and we'll do both of those stitches. There we are. Okay, 24 inches again or so. All right, and let's get our 3 strands. So I just kind of tap the ends to separate the 6 strands, and let's just grab one, kind of separate them from the rest and pull. All right, let's get a second one. I'm using 3 strands for this whole piece. Oops, I got a little stuck there. A chain stitch Phyllis definitely looks just exactly like what a crocheter chain stitch looks like. That's kind of one of the reasons I love a chain stitch. We're going to do that up here. But yeah, it just reminds me of crochet and knitting and all those other crafts that have an actual chain stitch as well. There we are. Doing that pinch method, just pinch it in your fingers, and as you undo it, like right when you see, like as you undo your pinch, right when you see the thread, just put the needle right over it and squish it on in there. Uh-oh, did I not get them all? Oh, I missed one. Let's try that again. Like, that didn't feel right. So one thing, I didn't clean up my edge here, so one thing that would help is just like snipping the little ends so they're all equal. Alright, and thread the needle, again using that pinch method, pull it on through. Now we're all set. Alright, so I'm going to weave into the backs of these stitches again just to get started. It's a little extra step, but I'll do that extra step all day to not have knots on the back. And there's nothing wrong with knots on the back. Again, it's just a preference I have, because when I do have knots in the back, my thread always gets stuck on it, and I'm always pulling like those little end threads through to the front, and that just gets super annoying. And weaving in the ends like this kind of gets rid of all those issues, so I'm all for it. Oops, all right. Okay, the stem stitch. So this is another stitch that we're going to come up right at the beginning of the row. And now this time we are going to go in and out in the same motion. We have been going using the stabbing method where we go down, pull the thread all the way through, and then come up and pull the thread all the way through. That's how I used to do stem stitch, and I hated it. But now I've kind of figured it out, and the trick really is to go in and out in the same motion. So I'm going to do that. That'll be a little bit different than what I was doing here. But I'm going to actually go almost 2 stitch lengths away, so I'm almost like at a 1/2 inch now. I'm going to go in on the line, and I'm going to come back out, kind of right in the middle there. So it's almost like we're doing a back stitch. So to see that again, I'm going to go about 2 stitch lengths, like a little bit longer than what we've been doing, and then come up along the line. Now the trick also is I want my thread to be going underneath me here. So I'm going to pull this through, but as you can see, this thread is like kind of looping underneath. That's what we want. All right, and that is our first stitch. All right, so I'm going to hold this thread down again so it can loop underneath. Now I'm going to go like those 2 stitch lengths away again, so the one would get us to that hole and another one would get us a little bit farther. We're going to go in and out, and I'm going to come up in or real near that last hole. So I'm kind of coming up in the last hole in the same motion again, in and out in the same motion. The thread is underneath, and I'm going to pull that through. So that thread is still kind of looping underneath. And there we go. It gives you kind of like these diagonal, sideways, overlapping stitches there. So, all right, let's keep going like that. I'm going to put this down again. It's 2 stitch lengths away, in and out, and pull. I was kind of like having my thumb holding that loop down. Oh, yeah, so it makes... So if you are, so this is how I used to be doing this, and I'll show you. This might be, if you've tried this stitch before, this might be what you're doing. My normal way of stitching is I go down like that, and then I come up. But with the stem stitch, it is near impossible to get that last stitch out of the way so you can get this next stitch up there. Like you keep accidentally splitting the threads. There we go. I finally got it like that. It is so annoying. I hate it. It is the most annoying thing ever. And then I realized that how people are doing this all the time is they're going in and out in the same motion, and it totally changes the game. So in and out in the same motion, so nothing's in my way when I am bringing it up at that center point like it is if I'm doing that stabbing motion I just did. You just pull it on through and you're good to go. So easy. And you can vary how long you want these stitches. You can vary how much they overlap. Like I could overlap it a little bit more here, and that'd give it maybe a little bit different look, a little fatter look. There's a lot of play that you can have with this stem stitch, but it really, honestly, all comes down to this motion of going in and out at the same time. It is not fun unless you do it that way. Oh, good. Nora says, I see what I've been doing wrong. Yeah, once I hated this stitch so much, and I couldn't. It's such a common stitch. Like, it's traditionally used a ton. And I'm like, how can they be using that stitch? It's so difficult. But this in and out is the key. All right, so there's two ways you can end the row. You can just finish it by going down, and then you'll just have like one bit, one like thickness of thread. So I could go like that, so it's a little bit thinner. Or I could, I'm just gonna pull that out a little. I could go in and out again and make like a half stitch at the end. So it's whatever you want to do. So there, I'm just gonna go in the same hole then. That'll keep the thickness of the line. All right, so another thing with the stem stitch is it is notoriously difficult to turn because you've just ended in that hole. But to start, you know, if I'm going to start this row, I need to like start in that hole, right? But that's going to pull the last stitch out, right? So you got yourself a little bit of a dilemma. So here's a trick whenever you have a stitch like this where you can't just make a turn because you would be pulling the stitch out. If you flip it over, put your needle through one of the back stitches there. I think I'm actually going to go two back like this. Pull it through, and now you can come back up at the beginning of that row, and nothing's going to pull out because you're looped around the back of that stitch. So now I can turn and do the rest of my row here. There, I'm just going to go down at the end here. There we go. So that's how you would turn, how you'd make an angle using the stem stitch. But here we go, a little closer up the stem stitch. You can see all the little kind of diagonals. It's kind of like a back stitch that's overlapping a little bit, and it's kind of like a split stitch where you just go next to the stitch instead of right through. So you get this kind of like diagonal overlapping look. It's really pretty. It actually gives you almost a double thickness of your line because you are putting those two stitches next to each other, so you're kind of doubling it up a little bit. So all right, there's our two new stitches so far, the split stitch and the stem stitch. Like I said, that stem stitch, that took me years to realize what I was doing wrong with that, or the trick that was changing it from difficult to not difficult was that's just going in and out all at once. Thread conditioner, so there's a couple different types of thread conditioners, Amy, and as far as I know, I gotta dig into it a little bit more, but there's like a silicone-based one that kind of actually kind of conditions the thread. I think it kind of sinks into it a little bit. And then the thread conditioner that I'm using is a beeswax based one, but I think it has some extra oils and some other nice things in there too that protects the thread a little bit. Oh, that's so helpful. Do you go live every night, or is this there's more on your page? I am this week I will be live every night stitching this one. I'm hopefully going to start going live more often on TikTok. So I'm live every night on YouTube and Facebook. I'm live there right now as well. But I'm trying to do more TikTok lives, which works good for embroidery, but I do some sewing and that sort of stuff too, and it might not work quite as well for that. But this will be saved. I will put this all up on, it'll be on YouTube as well. So in my profile, if you click the YouTube link there, this will be saved there. But yes, I go live every night, which is, I love doing it because I love hanging out with everyone and answering questions and just hanging out with some crafty people. That's just so nice. All right, so I'm taking the hoop out because I'm gonna shimmy sham it up here. So in the design here, let's just check the design again. Okay, split stitch. So all of this, I call it Queen Anne's lace. It can be whatever flower you want, but this Queen Anne's lace is all split stitch, except for like the little kind of ferny leaves. Those are a feather stitch, so we'll do that later. But we can get started on the split stitch. And then stem stitch in this design is used on the tulip leaves and stem. So let's give both of those a try up top here, and then we can kind of see how our little guys that we learned here are actually done. So, all right, let's just kind of getting that set in the hoop there. I am kind of squishing this because it's a little bit bigger than the hoop, but that's fine, as long as you're gentle enough with it. Oh, Marie, I'm happy that you're liking the tips. Yeah. Learn from my mistakes, for sure. I'm telling you, that was a whole mystery to me for years and years and years, the stem stitch, like how anyone does the stem stitch or could even like it. Like, I just hated it, and it was just that one thing that made it awesome and enjoyable was the going in and out in the same motion versus the stabbing method where you pull all the way through to the back and then all the way through to the front. That just is not fun with that. All right, should we do some stem stitch first? Why don't we continue with the stem stitch, since that's kind of fresh on the brain. We can see that a little bit more. All right, let's snip the end here so we have a nice clean end that I can thread. All right, and I'm going to start with an away knot. So this is a type of knot that it's called a waist knot, and the away knot is the version of waist knot. And what that kind of means is it's a temporary knot that we're going to use to just reserve a little piece of floss that we can later weave in. You've kind of seen that I've been weaving in all my ends so I don't have knots on the back, because I hate things getting caught on them, basically. So this is a way to reserve that thread. So I'm going to start here on this tulip. I think I'm going to do that leaf first. And I'm going to start like right there. So I want to have my thread like 4 inches or so away from there. So I'm going to go just from the front. I know this looks crazy, but it'll make sense in a bit. And the only reason I'm doing it is because I have no other stitches in the vicinity here to weave in the backs of, like I was weaving in the back down here. So we're going from the front to back. There's our little knot. And let's just start up right at the bottom here. All right, that's at the beginning of our row. So right here, that is our thread we are reserving for later. We're going to reserve that to weave in later so we don't start with a knot. Okay, so I like moving the hoop around for the stem. We're doing the stem stitch now, what we were just doing down below. I like moving the hoop around, so I'm always going like from left to right, like beginning of the row to the end of the row, like that. I get confused if I'm going like upright or other directions, so I'm always going left to right with this. And I'm always kind of keeping my floss down. Every once in a while there's reasons to not have your floss going underneath, but we're going to stick to having it underneath. So I'm always going to have that floss downward like that. All right, so I'm going in and out. So again, like 2 stitches worth almost. I'm kind of supporting it on the table here too, just because my hand's up here doing stuff. So it's on the table, and I'm holding it up here, and I'm holding this down with my thumb here. So I'm going to go in and out. So in on the line and out on the line, keeping my thread going downward, and then we can pull that, and it's all going to kind of loop at the top. There we go. It's our first stitch. All right, so let's keep this thread going down. Let's go with the next stitch length away. I'm going to come up right kind of where that hole is, last hole on the line, and again keeping my thread down and out of the way. We're going to come on through again. Let's do a few more and then I can show you the close-up again. So keeping it down, in and out, and again that in and out is the key to stem stitch working out. Otherwise it's so difficult. This is actually one of my new favorite stitches, but I can't even really admit that yet because I hated it so much until I figured out that in and out motion for it. Oh, I think it's kind of fun. So I'll stitch to the end of this leaf and then we can take a look at it. Okay, I think 2 more stitches will do. There we go, right to the top of the leaf there. So here's it up close again. It's thick too, so it gives us like a nice height off of the fabric, but it has like that little diagonal look to it, and it's almost braided, almost that little, or like a twist. It looks like a little, like you've twisted the threads and like glued them on, sort of. So it's just pretty. One of those nice decorative stitches. Oh, Janetta is such a game changer. I'm telling you, it totally is the in and out motion for that stem stitch. All right, so let's continue down. I'll just stitch till I'm done with this floss, or I'm done with the tulip, whatever happens first, and then we'll move on to the split stitch and do that. All right, so I want to come down on this side now, but I can't go back in that hole, right, because it would pull out this last stitch. So this is one of those cases that I got to go to the back. I got to loop it around one of my last stitches here. There we go. And now I can come back up at the beginning of the row without it pulling the thread out, right? Ooh, we're a little... Ugh, I'm going to pull it tight back here. It's kind of making a mess of the front. There we go. Tight, tight. There. There, now it looks nice and clean. All right. So now we can start at the beginning of the row again. So again, I'm kind of keeping it down. I'm always thinking of the row as left to right. So now I'm going to just ignore all these stitches for now. And just, this is my new downward. So left to right. All right, in and out. The out is about halfway in between. In and out. And you got to keep that thread downward still. Ooh, I stabbed myself a little bit there. In and out. I just think this is really pretty. So this is super traditional, this stitch. If you see, like, if you have like vintage tea towels or anything like that, pretty good chance it'll be this stem stitch. And one of the reasons that is this is a really easy stitch to do without a hoop. So you could actually, because you're doing this in and out motion in the same deal, you don't exactly need the hoop to hold everything in place. It can be sort of loose everywhere else because you're not having all this thread go to the back. So I think that's why it was used a lot, because it could be used without a hoop. All right, going back in that same hole. There we go, that's our first leaf. All right, I'm gonna come up there again and go around this way. So I need to catch it around the back of a stitch again. All right, let's come up there. Uh-oh, almost. Oh, we're almost out of thread here. We'll probably get to the top here with this amount. And when I run out of this, I'm going to stop and we'll start that other stitch. Oh, I'm so happy you're learning some stuff today. When the curve is outward, I have a loop on top. So Linda, that's exactly right. So I've been keeping the loops to the bottom, but Linda has a good point. When the curve is outward, I have the loop on the top, inward, the loop on the bottom line, like you're doing. Yeah, so So that's a good tip. I'm keeping mine towards the bottom, but I kind of go the way that the arc is going. So, for example, if I had an arc going outwards like this, I might have the thread on the top, so it's going the same direction as that loop, or the like that arc. Like if the arc was going this way, like around like that, I might arc my thread up like that, and instead I'd be holding it upwards instead of downwards. Um, and like in this case, it's going kind of downward. So now I'm having the thread also come downward. If it switches in the middle like that, I can actually switch in the middle and change it up too. So there is some variations and stuff with this stem stitch, but for now I'm keeping it to just this, keeping the thread underneath. But you're totally right, Linda. Yes, like parallel arcs. That's a great way of thinking about it. So having this arc parallel to whatever the arc that you're stitching, that is a great way of thinking about it. My default is just to keep it down, but yes, if you're doing like just different arcs, for sure, uh, think about it as parallel arcs. I like that way of thinking about it. That's good. All right, yeah, I'm just gonna have enough to get to the top here, and then I'll stop. So when I come back with this later, when we finish all the stitches later, I'll have to start at the top of this leaf, because I think that's gonna be my stopping point. I'm not. This stem stitch takes up a bunch of floss because you're keeping on going back on yourself, so it takes up a lot of floss. So I don't think I'll make it all the way back down there. So we'll just stop right there, and let's weave in those ends. Again, I'm weaving in the ends instead of tying knots. Gives me a nice clean back. There's nothing for my thread to get caught on, which means less mess on the back, and everything's just clean and happy. All right, remember our away knot here, our little reserve of floss. Let's snip the knot from the front. The knot's all the way down here. There we go, and that releases that little bit of thread that we wanted on reserve. So I'm going to rethread my needle with that, and we'll weave in this end too. So this is that away knot. That's what we just did here. That's what I like doing when I have no other stitches to weave in the back. But when we start this next color up here, I'll have these stitches to weave in, so I won't have to do this away knot like what I did here. Or you could just tie a knot and get started. You can still do that too. I just like having my no knots on the back. Do I change so thread always comes up on outside? Oh yeah, Amy, yeah. I like that analogy, thinking about it as parallel curves. So that's typically what I do. But in this case, just for demo, I just kind of kept it at the bottom. All right, so there we go. That's our pretty stem stitch. I just like kind of looking at them from the side. They all kind of have different heights and feels to it. It's just kind of fun. All right, so let's do the split stitch. So that's the first stitch we did this evening. So let's see if we can remember how to do that. Let's thread the needle here. So I'm going to weave into the backs of these stitches. I don't have to start that away knot again. Okay. So let's weave into the backs of these, and then we'll jump over there. All these ways are different ways that you could use for outlining shapes. They just all have a slightly different look to them. And some have actually a little bit more precision than others, I think. Like the back stitch is really nice for going around edges and like points. You can get really precise with it, I think. That might be one reason that I stick to that a lot. But there's just some prettiness that comes with with these stem stitches and stuff that are just fun. Ooh, let's shape this a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so a split stitch. So we're going to start at the beginning of our row. I'm going to go just up this stem here, and then we can branch off and do some of these phalanges, I guess. Oh, Gracie, thank you so much for the share. I appreciate that a ton. All right, a split stitch. We went forward about a stitch length, so we went forward like less than what we did with the stem stitch. Stem stitch, we kind of went 2 forward, or 2 stitches forward. This one, we're kind of just going like a normal stitch length. I'm doing about an 1/8 inch. I'm probably a little bit more than an 1/8 inch. Sometimes I make my stitches longer, sometimes shorter. Like on a long straightaway like this, they kind of get a little bit longer. But on tight curves, I shorten them up. All right, so split stitch, we're going backwards just a little bit, and we're coming up right through the middle of that stitch. So we're splitting those threads. There we go. So we've like cut those in half, those threads. And that's our first stitch. So all right, let's go to our next one. Go like another stitch length. And come back through that. So this is almost what our stem stitch would look like if we didn't get our thread out of the way. Like if we just, like the stabbing method. This is what all my stem stitches used to look like when I wasn't going in and out in the same motion. I was catching the thread, splitting the thread, and really kind of making a split stitch instead, and just getting super frustrated. But this is its own stitch. It's definitely less organized, isn't really the word, but like how these all lie like super pretty next to each other like little diagonals. This is not that at all. This almost looks like a bunch of twisted knots going up the side, which has got its own prettiness to it too. I like adding these extra kind of decorative line stitches for flowers and that sort of thing. Whereas the raccoon is all going to be back stitch, so that's that kind of like beady little, where you can see each little stitch there. There we go. So to find, just a little tip on to find the right spot where you come up. I'm actually kind of dragging my needle across the back of the thread, and you can see that point. And I just move that point till it gets to where I want it to be along the line. So you get pretty good at guessing about where you need to be, but I always have a tiny little bit of drag of that needle so I can see it from the front. See, just like that, I'm always kind of just making that motion. And that's me just trying to position my needle so it comes up in the right spot. All right, so that is our first little area there. Let's see, should we, I think I kind of want to just jump, I'm going to jump over here. I'll probably just go till my thread is done here again. So I'm just trying to decide where to go next. I think I'm going to jump over to here. Let's do some of these like 2 little X's, and then I'll do this arc that goes all the way up to that one. I was kind of like planning out my next route, and I think that's the plan. There's no real right, wrong, or way to do that. I try and do it with the least amount of jumping around, even though I just jumped around there, but oh well. All these little dots up here are going to be French knots, so we'll be learning those later this week probably. I'm just going to kind of go over the top of that one. Could have probably done these in 2 stitches, but we're doing 3. All right, and then I'm gonna go this arc all the way up there. So just a reminder, this is a totally free pattern. It is in my profile or on the link below the post here. It is a free PDF pattern, and it also comes with emails of like 14 days of stitches. So there's 14 stitches on here. You'll get an email a day of the different stitches with videos and all that as well. It comes as a kit as well, and that's what I'm stitching right now is the kit. So the kit comes with the design pre-printed on the fabric, comes with the hoop, it comes with all the floss, comes with instructions and little booklet on how to embroider. So it comes with all those things, which makes it easy if you just want to get started. But the free way to do it is just downloading it. So that's on that link there. But yeah, so we'll be stitching this for the rest of the week and probably in the next week for sure. Just because there's a lot going on with this guy. 14 different stitches all up in this little area here, which is just kind of fun. Lots of times I'll only do like maybe two or three stitches with something this size, but this one has 14 different ones. Oh, KJ, no problem. Let me know how it's going for you. Yeah, and I'll be here, you know, if you ever have any questions with it. And I'm here every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, at least on YouTube and Facebook, and probably more on TikTok now as well. So even if we're not working on this and you have an embroidery question, feel free to ask. That's totally fine. Oh, Charlotte says the stitching emails are very nicely done, very easy to understand. Ugh, okay, good. That makes me happy. That's good to hear. You never know, right? Oh, this is so relaxing to watch. That's nice. I do think I know I'm yammering over the top of it, but I do think this embroidery would be like great for ASMR videos. I think that would just be so fun. Because just there's like I love the sound of the thread going through the fabric, and there's a little click when the needle pops through, and I just love that. So here's that. Ugh, there. I just love that little click through. It's fun, and the nice thing about any craft too, first of all, besides it being super relaxing, theoretically, I mean, if you're doing a relaxing craft, sometimes you want to do a craft so it's challenging or you're learning a new thing. That's probably not quite as relaxing, but right now this is relaxing. Oh, I kind of started that one weird. But you also end up with something, right? You end up with like something that you made, which is just neat. All right, so that little guy's done. I think I'm gonna just hop on down to this one. We'll go until this thread is done. Oh, I got quite a bit left, so let's see. I don't think I can finish this whole thing with just this thread, but we'll get pretty close actually, I think. Yeah, maybe. Oh no, you used to do this all the time, but now nearly blind in one eye. Ugh, yeah. I wonder if some of those like magnifying glasses would help, because they have lights on and magnifying help. That might be helpful. I do love the sound of this though. All crafts kind of have their individual relaxing sounds that go with it, like just the sewing machine going, or like the knitting needles clicking. I think I did get a little loop in here. Dang. So usually I can catch these, like I can feel them with my my left hand here, but I missed this one, so I got a little weird knot. It's already worked itself out, so now it's just this loop, which kind of sucks because it's from a while ago. I might just try and incorporate it into the backs of my stitches a little bit. So, all right, I'm gonna hop up here. Hate when that happens. There, and I'm just gonna kind of stitch over the top of it. There we go. And I might actually just try and grab that loop a little bit. I think we'll be fine. We have all these French knots. It'll get tied up in those French knots. And all I'm just trying to do is secure it down because I don't want like the stitch that it's attached to loosen up. Boo! Oh well. It happens. Oh, I was wondering if there's anything you can make the linens darker. Oh, that you can wash out after. Oh, the lines darker, to make the lines darker that you can wash out after. Well, there's a few things. So, for one, this is a product that I love using. It's called Stick and Stitch, and it's by Sulky, and you can just run this through a printer. So like this is from the PDF, this printout right here, because I was tracing it yesterday. But you could print this page onto one of these Stick and Stitch pages. They're the size of a printer. They're 8.5 by 11 in the United States. They're 8.5 by 11, and then what it's like is it's so you'd print on the side that's kind of rough, but it's basically a sticker. So you, after it's printed, you take it off like there, and then you just stick it. Oh, the sound went out. Oh, all right. Let me know if I'm okay with you guys yet. So you just stick it onto your fabric, and then you stitch through it like a sticker. Or you stitch through it, the whole thing, and then it washes out later. But what's so nice about it is that you can use it on dark fabrics or light fabrics, or, oh, you hear me? Okay, good. Any other fabric that is okay with getting wet. You don't want to use it on something that you don't want to get wet, because you do have to wash it out when you're done. So you stitch through the whole thing, and then it washes out when you're done. And those give you just perfect dark lines. It's just like, you know, a normal black and white printout. So that's my favorite way. You could also trace the design with like a water-soluble marker that will come out with water, and you might be able to get the lines a little bit darker. I think they're showing up a lot lighter than it is in real life, but that's one of my favorite products ever, is this Stick and Stitch. And the nice thing is that you just, if you have a printer, you can just print the design right to it, which means you don't have to trace at all. You can just stick it on and get started, and that's awesome. Basically, skip the transfer process. All right, so I am going to just make it through this little star guy, I think, little asterisk looking guy. I'm definitely not going to have enough for all of this. I might not even actually have enough for this. But look how pretty it's looking. This is just looking just sweet and cute, I think, especially with this stitch. So again, we're still doing the split stitch, and it just looks organic and friendly. It looks less like a bunch of small little stitches. It looks just more like a thick line, I feel like, which is just, I don't know. Sometimes I just want that look. So I'm going to have to get some more thread for that later. Maybe I'll do that when we do the feather stitch. So the feather stitch will come later, and that's used on these little leaves here. So when we come back and do that, we'll finish up this little part that I'm missing up here too. Oh, you hear me fine. Okay, good. Good. All right. I'm going to get this one last stitch here, and then I think we will weave in our ends, and we'll take it out of the hoop, see where we're at, and call it an evening. We'll see what we'll be doing tomorrow. I think it's going to be the blanket stitch, so that'll be kind of fun. That's a pretty well-used stitch in embroidery land. Oftentimes you do a blanket stitch around the edge of a blanket, an edge of fabric, so I can actually show you how to do that too. You can do it, we're doing the surface embroidery version of the blanket stitch. We're actually going to do it around his actual blanket, which is just kind of funny, but you can actually do it around a real blanket, so I can show you both of those tomorrow. So, all right, this is the blanket stitch. We'll do that first tomorrow. So I think I'll show you how to do it here, and then just for fun, I can show you how to do it around the edge. A little bit of this piece here, because why not? I think that'd be kind of fun. That's how a lot of people finish the edges of blankets, is just with a cute little blanket stitch. So a surface blanket stitch and an edge blanket stitch. We'll do both of them, and then we'll come up here and we'll stitch his little blanket edge up there. Then if there's time, we'll do the chain stitch. The chain stitch is next on our list here. And where's the chain stitch used? Oh, it's going to be in his big tail to give his tail some extra floof. And then like where we want a few thicker lines, like the collar of his shirt and the collar, or his edges of the cuffs of his shirt are both the chain stitch as well. So all right, that's the next two stitches, at least the blanket stitch, because we're going to be doing a little bit extra, but hopefully we can get both of those done as well. So, all right, be sure to go over to the profile or the link below and grab the free pattern of this. Totally free. This, again, is from the kit version, but the pattern is free, and you can trace the design on fabric that you have. All right, let's flip around here. All right, hello again. So, we will be working on this some more tomorrow. I am super excited for it to, for us to get a little farther on it. So here's the kit. The kit has everything in it. Here's the kit version if you want all the supplies in there. But otherwise, the pattern is free. And thanks for stitching with me again today. We'll be doing this the rest of the week and probably a little bit into next week. We might put the Granny Square project to the side a little bit just so we can finish this embroidery. And oh, this is the last few days for the embroidery of the month too. So be sure to check that out as well. And we'll get a new embroidery of the month on Sunday. It's going to be August on Sunday. All right, you guys. So have a wonderful rest of your evening, and I will see you tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Good night.